I guess you could do these tastings, Evan, from your back deck if you really wanted to.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've done that at one point in time.
Yep.
Um, I am going to do that mute thing, so you might have to unmute the next time you want to quickly speak. Um, well, before we get rolling tonight, quick heads up. We do have some new tastings, new whiskeys rolling out. If not tomorrow, then probably Thursday. We got some new whiskeys from Signatory, Edradour, the Whiskey Trail, which is really cool. And it means we're going to have some fun new tastings to come in the weeks ahead. Well, I guess in the months ahead, because the first tasting won't be until the end of towards the end of July. But you should see some details on that tomorrow. For Jeff, who I saw just snuck in, new signatory, new whiskey trail, new Edradour, new tastings, probably announced realistically Thursday. I'd like to think it'll get out tomorrow, but I mean, time. There's just never enough time. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it's an odd
Evan,
concept.
it, it's anything else we should plug quickly before we get rolling here?
But I think that's about it for now. I did take a look at the lineup for the Edradour and signatory tasting. So much sherry. There's
So
like,
much sherry.
yeah, that's 2 weeks of like half sherry, half whiskey, but it'll be a lot of fun.
I mean, your palate's going to be stretched. You know, the signatory and Edradour stuff is interesting because I remember when we were the first store to bring it into Alberta, and this goes back 12, 15 years, goes back a long time. And back then, the regular Edradour stuff was pretty lackluster. Some of the sherry stuff was decent. Um, but I think the sherry's kind of caught up with them and they've got some better, more interesting stuff. I think the cask management that they've done in the last decade has really paid off. And I mean, if you like that style, there's a lot to love. But maybe for some people, it's just too much sherry. Anyway, we'll see when we get there. So tonight's lineup, yeah, Jeff commenting, where is everyone tonight? We did sell like more than half the spots for tonight's tasting for
Yeah.
sure. But to the comment, Jeff, uh, oh, do both links work? That's a
I'm I'm fairly certain that I did both things correctly. I don't think I rickrolled anybody or sent them to a different tasting this time around, but I mean, those things have happened in the past. So
is Rick rolling on the bingo square?
yeah.
Yeah.
And no, actually, it doesn't. I might have to add that
Yeah.
at some point.
Russell saying if they're Ontario, they're probably melting. I suppose that's true about our friends in Quebec. Um, I think the other thing is like it's a pretty nice night here in Calgary after a
Mm.
weekend of torrential rain. Like we got, I think, a quarter of our year's total normal precipitation in 24 hours. So
Yeah.
people might be outside enjoying the sun again.
Yeah.
But who knows? We've got who we've got. We've got some fun whiskeys. We're still going to have a good time here. And then other people will catch up on their own or watch this on YouTube. Or do we still put these on Facebook?
No, but I should probably look at doing that again. I could toss the recording up there too.
Yeah, I mean, they just made it hard for us to live stream, so we stopped.
Mm.
So let's not spend any more time on that. Let's dive right into the lineup tonight. Um, we've got, an interesting assortment of things here. I don't think I did any favors by calling this the odds and ends tasting. I thought it was being kind of clever personally because these are all things that I thought would be fun to put into a tasting that I didn't think had been featured as yet in a tasting. So why not
Mhm.
just lump them all together? And maybe that was not enough of a theme for some people, but I stand by that decision. We've got some fun things, including the first one tonight, which is the first distillery label Strathisla bottling we've seen in quite some time from Gordon MacPhail.
Yeah.
2009, 15 years of age, from sherry casks, 46%. I wrote a tasting note up on this a little while back and thought it was pretty good. I mean, a good example of some of the value that Gordon MacPhail is still putting out there. And, you know, let's make a range from it. So starting
Yeah.
off with that Strath Islet, man, there's like this grapey Hubba Bubba thing on that.
And I remember getting those grapey notes off the previous, which I think was a 2007 or 2009 that we had years ago in the
Mhm.
thinner G&M bottles. And that one was only bottled at 43, if I recall correctly. It's nice to see the bump to 46.
Well, I don't think they do anything except for maybe the disco line above
Yeah.
or below 46 at this point. So Strathisla, reputedly one of the oldest distilleries in Scotland. I know Glen Turret currently seems to have the best case on that, but there's a lot of people, myself included, who think Strathisla might have as good, if not a better claim to being the oldest
Hmm.
distillery in Scotland. Very small, very traditional. Makes about 2.5 million liters a year, which I guess isn't tiny, but they're really working hard to do that. Glen Keith Distillery was built to augment it because they just couldn't increase production. Um, and I think we don't see very much of it. I mean, it's all going into Chivas, the vast
Yeah.
majority of it. When we have seen it, it has been typically from Gordon MacPhail, but it's not been very consistent in recent years in terms
Yeah.
of
They
supply.
used to, years and years ago, they had a decent 14-year-old and then 15-year-old official bottling, even though they were bottled at 40% alcohol. Um, and we haven't seen an official bottling for probably 6 or 7 years now, just because when Pernod Ricard brought it in, slash Corby, I feel like they did not get the sales they expected.
Mhm. Well, like Macallan, it's got very small stills. It tends to produce a fairly heavy, oily spirit, which tends to pair well with sherry casks. And I
Mhm.
think, Evan, when we're talking Strathisla and sherry, I mean, the 12-year-old Strathisla was I don't think it was ever overly sherry. It was just a generic kind
Yeah,
of, I don't want to say dial it in, but like not a massive amount of effort put behind it. Single malt. The most interesting ones were always the ones from Gordon MacPhail.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think the reason why it's worked well with Gordon MacPhail is because of their emphasis on sherry casks, especially older sherry casks. And it's able to kind of withstand and hold up to some of those like, long maturations in sherry.
Yeah, I like the style, and it it seems to have a really good combination of being well structured, but like well filled out at the same time. Like there's notes in this that would be almost going into Dumpy territory if it was like a Glen Rothes or something like that. The grape notes are really cool. It's got like a black forest cake note for it to it for
Mhm.
me as well.
Yeah, the palate, I mean, there's still that little bit of hubba bubba on the palate, but it's more balanced, like wine gums, orchard
Mhm.
fruits. I mean, a little bit of tobacco in there too, some chocolate. There's a nice structure to it. This is interesting because I think this whiskey drinks well right now, but I think it could have also gone in the cask another 10, 12, 15 years because the oak is far from overwhelming it. It's still got a really nice balance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Gordon MacPhail realized they had like way too much Strathisla still sitting from the 60s and 70s and just had to bottle this young stuff up.
Well, solution to that is to sell us a cask.
That's right.
I mean, maybe that should be next on the hit list to see if
It'd be cool.
we can get them to part with a cask for us. So in the chat, Jeff, no, that is not the right one. Uh, Jeff had mentioned that Kensington had a Strath Isla cask way back when,
Is that the
from
64?
1960, and I'm trying to find it. I'm pretty sure we recreated it for the archive a number of years ago, just so that we could put
Oh yeah. Put it
and
on the back of the
yeah, because it was on the whiskey calendar, and I'm pretty sure we wanted it so that we could put it on the blog. But I am looking through the back end of the website and I don't see it. So I don't know. Maybe someone's sleuthing skills can find the blog page for that because I'm pretty sure we did a post on even those older bottlings. But yeah,
I
our
know that Glen Grant was on there. I'm not sure if the
I'm
Strathisla was.
100% sure it was. I know
Oh
because I
yeah,
remember.
I found it.
Oh, you found it. There we go.
It's History in the Bottle, Day One. Strathisla Cast Strength 1960. I'll see if I can get the actual link up or
Sure.
post up here in a sec.
So while Evan's looking for that, the backstory on this is going back to, I believe it was 2007, we launched our first ever Kensington Wine Market single cask. And Gordon MacPhail offered us a 1960 46-year-old Strathisla. And yeah, I was worried about it at the time. I think we sold it for about $550, which seemed like a lot of money back then. I mean, this is almost 20 years ago now, and dark as Coke. I mean, you couldn't see through it. It even threw a sediment in the glass, like if you left it in there. And turns out I was wrong. We sold the entirety of the cask, which wasn't a big one. I mean, it held its alcohol. It was close to 60%, but we sold it in I think 6 or 8 weeks. It was a hit. Um, Jeff saying he would gladly pay that. I mean, who wouldn't? $550 for a 46-year-old dark AF, as the kids would say. Strathisla is pretty crazy. I suppose the good news to that is in July, we're going to be rolling out a 44-year-old blend that's sherried, that tastes like old single malt, that's going to be around $500, that I think, is another way for people to get good value, older whiskey at a fair price. But yeah, this is not something that we've been able to do for a long time. And I mean, there were a few early hits like the Glendronach 72, but yeah, Strathisla is a lovely distillery. I guess my point in all this is it's not been the most available single malt in recent years.
Mhm.
It's been harder and harder to come by. And short of Gordon MacPhail, I don't think we've seen any Strathisla in quite a while.
Yeah. Sorry, while I was searching that, did you mention the blend that's coming out tomorrow?
Well, no, it's not. It's going to be next week. There's a
Hmm.
bottle coming. There's a case coming in tomorrow because we need to do photos and tasting notes. But yeah, there is a Walter's Choice bottling coming, which I don't know if we've shared any of that yet.
No,
Maybe
I don't
maybe
think we
just
have.
maybe just before the break, just before we do our speed round,
Hmm.
I'll share the label image for that. I don't have a bottle image, so you can't see the liquid and the color. But what I do have is um, the final label image for our 44-year-old blend that we're going to be rolling out in likely, I would say, second week of July. There's a reason why we're not launching it before that. It's just simply that there's too much stuff coming in the next few weeks, and we don't want to overwhelm everyone, let alone ourselves. There's frankly too much interesting stuff between Signatory, the Whiskey Trail, and some elixir stuff that frankly I'm actually putting off until August or September because we just can't digest it all at once. It's too
Hmm.
much. But I think it's our first order from elixir in almost 2 years, and that's
Yeah,
wild.
it's been a while.
Yeah. Um, Anyway, lovely Strathisla. I know we kind of went way off the piste on that, as it were, but let's steer things back to Loch Lomond 21. Evan, I know you were pretty excited to have this
Yeah,
whiskey in the tasting. You and I are both big fans of Loch Lomond Distillery, but I mean, this is an interesting dram. I think if had this arrived 2 or 3 years ago, it would have sold out like that because
yeah,
the quality's there, the value's there, but I think it's just at a price point slightly above
where
what,
people are looking right now.
or maybe not even that, what people think the Loch Lomond should be going for.
Yeah.
So it's not even
Um,
really about the liquid, it's about maybe perception of the distillery that's still in the general public trying to crawl out from being kind of a bargain brand.
mhm. Yeah, that's a good point. And another one that had perhaps some of this issue is the Tobermory 21, which I thought would sell better than it has as well. But Loch Lomond's, we've been saying for years that they're kind of in a renaissance and have been for a while now for official bottlings. And the 18's been stunning for quite a few years. Every other bottling that they put out seems to hit this high watermark as well, which is really cool. I was really excited to try this one for the first time, and I haven't had any of it till now.
Mhm.
It's it's not as peated on the nose as I expect it to be. It's got sort of like this combination of light smoke and dunnage going on.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned the smoke because like for me, I'm not even sure I get smoke. I'm just getting
Yeah.
like tropical, creamy, um, just decadent and fruity. Like it is just it's almost like opening a bottle of agave nectar.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good call. It's got like a just like there's a bag of dry dog food that's sitting in the laundry room, just open, going stale
Mhm.
in there for me as well.
Yeah, it's got, I think your comment on that's making me think it's got a bit of Gain like laundry detergent on the nose,
Hmm.
which I don't know what Gain smells like, but it's just the current laundry soap du jour in our household.
Palette wise, it almost goes into Bowmore territory a little bit, where you've got this like lavendery tropical note going on, a
Mhm.
little bit of that chalkiness as well. Not as sort of coastal driven though.
Yeah, and I mean going back to your comment about the smoke, Evan, again, I'm not sure I get any on the palate on this. There might be some barrel
Hmm.
char, but I mean I could be wrong. I just don't know. But your comment is an interesting one because like I think I would have a hard time pegging this. Um, maybe
That's
not
Loch
even
Lomond.
Loch Lomond, but I think I'd be confused. Like there's a Bowmore-esque nature to it.
Yeah,
The only other whiskey I've seen this much kind of lavender in recently is Bladnoch, like
yeah,
1980s Bladnoch.
absolutely. I like that a lot. It's got a little bit of like rose hip vitamin C tablets thing going on.
It's fruity, perfumed. There's some nice layers to it. It's got a really nice texture as
Mm,
well. Um, yeah, that's a great bottle, highly
yeah,
underrated. Um,
yeah.
and the funny thing is, like, we have a lot of people, and I mean, we like their whiskeys, but a lot of people that like lose their mind over, dare I say, like some independent bottlings, like decadent drinks that are two or three times the price for this for a comparable age and not necessarily better. And it's funny. This is one of those things where I honestly can't believe that this is not selling better than it is
Hmm.
at the price.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool dram. At 46 again, which is nice.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm still surprised that, as you were saying, there's not a bit more peat in there, given sort of their track record for showing off the Loch Lomond labels tends to have a bit more of that on the Loch Lomond side of things. It does
Hmm.
have the bit of the fruit salad notes that you get more on the Inchmirans.
Yeah, it's definitely fruit forward. I mean, I think my palate's confused because on one hand, I keep thinking like there's a little bit of smoke in there, but I don't know if I can differentiate it between that and barrel
Yeah,
char.
it's more peat and earthiness than smoke for me right now.
Hmm. Well, I guess, Evan, that's one maybe final thing we can talk about to round out about Loch Lomond is, they can call it Loch Lomond and they can blend
Yeah.
Inchmere, Inchmoan, what have you into it. They can put whatever of
Mhm.
their own distillate they want in as long as it's malt and from the grain still or from the malt stills, the pot stills. So, I mean, I think that's their one strategic advantage is that they can do whatever they want and
Yeah.
blend from all these different components and in theory create something really exceptional.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's probably what happened there. Does have like the 18 Loch Lomond always has this like orange rind and almost like Amaro-esque or Campari-esque sort of
Mhm.
bitter orange note to it. And there's just hints of that in here, but just not going into the same realm.
Yeah,
Um, this is just a nicely put together whiskey.
agreed. Well, little love for Loch Lomond 21. Hopefully a few more
Mhm.
people stumble across that and fall in love. Um, but shall we move on to the Inchgower?
Yeah.
So Inchgower single malt, we don't I mean, I think it's fair to say we don't talk about it a lot. We've had a KWM cask, at least one, in recent years. This is a 23-year-old from Old Malt Cask, so Hunter Lang. And I wanted to put this in the lineup because I frankly just thought it was really good. And it, along with an Ardmore, which I know people might find surprising given my past comments on Ardmore. Um, Inchgower is an interesting distillery for me because it's not one that I often think of, you know, this is going to sound bad, fondly, but like I can't think of like a number of great Inchgower bottlings I've had. I can think of some
Yeah,
interesting ones. And it's such an interesting profile. It's a Speyside distillery, but it's coastal. And then one of the other facts about it that's really weird is that their middle cut strays down into the mid 50s, like down to about 55%, which that's super deep for a single malt. And when you do that, you start straying into these kind of fish, tobacco, leather notes that a lot of
mhm,
distilleries would consider a flaw. So, we were joking before about, doing a tasting, and Evan, I don't know if you were in on this one, but I'm pretty sure it was James and I wanted to do a Scotland's worst distilleries tasting, or
yeah,
there was
yeah,
someone else, and some of the nominees were the likes of Ben Rennis and Othrusk,
yep,
and I think Inchgower was another one I wanted to put on there because I've had some like really challenging, a lot of really challenging Inchgower. Jeff tossing in the Laphroaig there.
yeah,
And I think part of the reason for that is I think it is such an intense spirit and kind of a dirty spirit that it doesn't work at a young age as a single malt. And I think it
yeah.
works at a young age as a blending component, but it doesn't work as a single malt. But I have had some interesting older Inchgowers, and I had a chance to try this one a few weeks back and thought, you know what, that's pretty interesting. I think it would be fun to toss that into a lineup.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree, and it's kind of similar to Othrusk in that manner, not necessarily style, although there's a bit of that, but where Othrusk, from to my understanding, a lot of it is meant to age longer and go into the older Johnny Walkers, such as the Blue. Um, no idea what it does when it's younger, because the younger ones that I've had never really impressed too much. But I've been trying to wrap my head around what it is about Inchgower style, and I've kind of settled on it's kind of a combination, a weird combination of Blair Athol and Ben Nevis, where you get
Hmm.
like there's this structured note to Inchgower that's almost like iron bars, uh, in a way where
Hmm.
it's the iron bars that are poking out on gates and stuff like that, or like out of concrete, where it's just got this slight metallic note, like you talk about with Blair Athol. Uh, or is it not Blair Athol? It's the other
No,
B,
it's
isn't it?
no, it's Blair. It's Blair
Oh, it is
Athol. Blair Athol
Blair
is
Athol.
definitely
Thank
one.
you.
Ben
And
Rennis is
then
the farmy one.
yeah, and then Ben Nevis, it has weirdly a bit of the meaty character, but it's a little bit more anemic. Like it's a little bit more thin on that side of things.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, Inchgower has always been like a salty single malt. Like the
Mhm.
salty maritime component is so prominent. And we talk about this in other tastings. Like Inchgower is not a distillery where there's like beautiful. I mean, there might be some warehouses there, I don't know. But Diageo is not maturing Inchgower on the seacoast in the
Yeah.
Speyside. It's going to central warehouses. So that salty element is probably coming from a combination of the water during the production process. So being on the coast, I think it makes sense that you would have a higher salinity just from the air in the water. And then that air during the distillation process, whether it's, fermentation,
Yeah.
distillation,
In the
all
vats.
that kind of stuff. It makes
Mhm.
sense that it's going to get in there. Anyway, what I really liked about this was just this was such an interesting Inchgower because I was expecting it to be rough and aggressive and in your face. And instead, it's delicate, fruity, like that fruit cocktail, fruit salad approach to it. It's got this nice French crepe note with like powdered sugar and a bit of lemon juice. It's just so delicate and so approachable.
The lemon juice is I can kind of get with you. I still find it not necessarily anemic, but like really tightly wound, which is typical for Inchgower for me. And
Oh,
like one of the big notes that it reminds me of, at least, or makes me throw back to you as a kid, is like when you're opening up the frozen can of orange juice concentrate,
mm.
um, where you're before you're putting it in and watering it down and mixing it all together. There's
I
something
think
on the
you,
nose that just reminds me of that.
I think you had me at orange freezy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like it's got a
It does
little
have
like I
some, sorry, go ahead.
was gonna say it's got a little bit of like Krusty's orange drink, by which I just mean
Yeah,
McDonald's orange drink.
yeah,
But then it's also there is a funkiness.
does.
That's that Ben Nevis component you come in. So we had a tasting this weekend, and one of the whiskeys made me think of like something being strained through the felt liners of a really well used pair of Sorel winter boots. And
Nice.
I mean, I think this has got a little bit of that on the palate. Like, what's interesting is you've got this really delicate, fruity, estery spirit, and then there's still this like slightly funky, possibly like asbestos filled basement kind of note to
Hmm. It does. It's a lot more open up and sort of spread out on the palate than I expected it to be based on the nose. Um, Almost going into a lush territory. It's a really cool palate.
it. Mhm.
Lots of fruit salad, still has a bit of that orange juice concentrate, sort of like mixed in just for kicks, I guess.
It's
Still
funny
get a bit
though.
of that iron filings and blood note
Well,
to
it's
it.
definitely got a metallic irony content to it. The funny thing is, though, is as much as I like it, when I wander back to that Loch Lomond, I mean, it just shows you how good that Loch Lomond vaulting is. And I suppose
Yeah.
that's maybe the unfairness of just a random single cask. And I mean, single cask can be incredible, don't get me wrong. But if you do a very good batch bottling, I mean, in theory, you should be able to create something better than just one single cask.
Also going back to that Loch Lomond, I find after doing the Inchgower, the peat comes through on the nose a bit more. Has this sort of musty, mushroom-like floral quality to it.
Hmm.
And a bit of that
Oh,
just like burnt wet cardboard that Loch Lomond sometimes gets.
burnt wood cardboard. All right. Okay, Balblair, I think is where we're on to
Yeah.
next.
This
So,
one I got to try last week in our whiskey festival, and it's a good one.
oh, did we crack this for the whiskey festival?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I mean, and it's we've got some arriving back in store tomorrow. Uh, I think in some ways, like a bottling like this is almost slightly white noise because we've
Mhm.
we've seen a lot of good mid, like low to mid 20 something Gordon MacPhail sherry cask whiskeys, and I guess how many can you handle over
Well, and
time? And I
the
think,
cool thing about this specific Balblair is it's ex-bourbon barrel, which we haven't seen a lot of
oh man.
ex-bourbon barrel Balblairs recently, especially from the G&Ms, where they've tended to be quite big on the sherry side of things.
Yeah, I mean, and that's an awesome point because we did. I mean, I think almost every Balblair we've seen up until this point has been sherried,
Hmm.
including like quite a few from 1993.
Yep.
Uh, there was a lot of 93 Balblairs. I mean, we're still seeing some of those older ones now in the wooden boxes. But yeah, this is a
Mhm.
97. We did a 97, a sherried 97
Yeah.
about 3 years ago, didn't we?
Yep.
So interesting to try something a little different. So yeah, as you said, bourbon cask,
Yep.
55.4. Let me toss this one up on the screen.
Yep. Yeah. On the nose for me, like lots of orange fruits, a bit of stone fruits even on the nose. Also has just a slight note of Elmer's glue on it
Wow.
for me as well.
Either that or like cold porridge, which
Yeah.
I
Well,
suppose could
they're
be like a
essentially the
malt note.
same. They have the same structure at that point, essentially.
I I tried making that argument as a child to my dad to no avail. You know, I'd wake up in the morning before school and he'd be like, "Your porridge is ready." He'd be like, "I didn't ask for porridge." And
Yeah.
then, like, if you were lucky, you got to put brown sugar on it just to make it mildly palatable.
Yeah. A little known fact, like a lot of Scots, and we've heard this from a couple customers of ours too, will pour like a shot of Scotch on their Elmer's glue in the morning.
On their homeless clue. I mean, I love that concept. I mean, being in the drinks industry, I think if I start putting whiskey on my porridge for breakfast, I think that's the point where I have to admit there's a problem.
Yep.
Um, my typical one beer a night, maybe a whiskey, versus like waking up making porridge just so I can pour a dram on it. That's I think when we're headed into troubled waters.
Yeah. Lots. I keep my Scotch as a chaser in the morning too, so I'm with you.
Man, this is so tropical on the nose. Like
Hmm.
really, really bright tropical fruits. It's like opening a box of Starburst fruit candies. And even for a second there, like, I don't know why, because this is not something I've drank in like a decade or more, but like apple juice, like all of a sudden,
Yeah.
it's just like this intense apple juice on the nose. And I think the reason that clued me into this is I went mountain biking with a guy who's a few years older than me about 2 weeks ago, and he had a thermos on his bike in addition to the water he was carrying. And every once in a while, I'd have a sip from a thermos. I'm like, "What's in the thermos?" He's like, "Oh, that's apple juice." And I was just like, "Oh, that's like his secret go juice, I guess, for mountain biking."
Nice. Oh, yeah. That like you can see how after trying this one, like with all the big sherry Belblairs that we've had, like the DNA is still in those sherry casks. Like it's got the structure, it's got that sort of like richness that Belblair gets at the top end.
Evan, it was inevitable that our tastings would come full circle at some point, and
Yeah.
we'd start being super repetitive, which obviously the bingo sheet um,
Yeah.
hints at. But this isn't the first time we've made that comment about
Yep.
comparing a different Balblair bourbon cask from Gordon MacPhail to a
Hmm.
prior sherry cask balling and how similar they are. Because the fruits, you're right, there's this really candied fruit
Hmm.
profile to it, kind of like jelly bellies or jelly beans, and it's the same as it was in the sherry cask version.
Yeah. Yeah. That just another great G&M mid-20s Belblair, regardless of cask.
Yeah, that's really lovely. Very drinkable. That's a crushable summer whiskey. I think it's fair to
Yeah.
say. I mean, this is, I mean, maybe we're trending here, but like I thought after the first couple, I thought I knew what my favorite was going to be in the first half of the lineup, and now I'm not sure.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see where you're going with that. On to number five,
On to number five, yeah. Some
which
Ardmore, much more
you've
Ardmore.
been talking this one up a bit.
Yeah. So Lee Hansen from Select Wines Icon, who's the rep, brought this in. Full disclosure, I think Lee gets a perverse pleasure out of this, and he must. I don't know. It's weird because I mean he's a good dude. He's got a good palate, especially for wine. But there's times where I'm not sure he has the best whiskey palate, and
Mhm.
for some reason, however, he seems to be able to identify wine cask whiskeys that I might actually like because he's like, you need to try this. And I'm like, no, I don't. It's a wine cask.
That's truly threading the needle too.
Yeah, I mean, Ardmore and wine cask. So this thing had two strikes against it. And he's like, come on, just try it. Just try it. So reluctantly, I tried it. And I mean, reluctantly, like I was probably intentionally grunting or something like, fine. And I don't know why. And it might have been the day. I'm not sure I've tried this since, but there was just something about this Ardmore where I was like, okay, that's actually pretty interesting. I wanted to hate it with all of my being, and in the end, I bought some and put it into tonight's lineup.
So it's X wine cask, X wine hogshead.
Hmm.
Uh, they don't say what type of wine, if I remember correctly on this.
No, and I mean, let's be honest, it's probably a finish. I don't know that this is
Yeah.
full term maturation. It was bottled for their 25th anniversary range. So maybe some credit needs to go to them that they felt this was good enough that it should be a part of that 25th anniversary collection. 13 years, 25%. We've already sold a few of these, but it had I don't remember what was so striking to me about it, but I think it was that it had almost a bit of like a cheesy funk to it that I thought
Yeah.
was kind of interesting.
Starchiness for sure. Like it reminds me of peanut butter and jam toast, like right
Yeah.
off the nose.
Or like when you're like cutting sweet potato, like raw sweet potato
Oh,
before
that's a
you
good
actually
call.
cook it.
Yeah.
It's very malty, like it's very grain forward. It
Hmm.
reminds me of like multi-grain wheat thins on the nose as well.
Well, even on the palate, like that is Russell says a lot softer than I thought it would be. Totally agreed, especially on the peat. Both the nose and the peat. Like there's peat or nose on the palate, pardon me. There's peat there, but it's not at the same level as your typical Ardmore.
Now I remember why I like this so much. So this has got to be a refill wine cask. So
Yeah.
they've used this one before. It's probably just been used for finishing. And what I loved about it was just how malty this was. Like the malt is just singing on this. It is all about the barley. There's this faint little kiss of smoke, and then there's just these nice, like sweet white fruits to complement it. I think what I liked about it was that it was such a like a fresh and clean profile for Ardmore and not like kind of dirty and musty, but just like a very malty, clean profile. And that's what sort of drew me to it.
I I'm curious as to like I'd love to know whether that was a red or a white wine, what style of wine it was. Because there's bits of it where I get like some strawberry notes, but then I almost go into like some like green apple and quince notes as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. Like I had a chance, Chris Maben, who's with Nick Nean Distillery, was in town last week and sat down and poured me like a whole bunch of samples, which I probably should bring into the store. And one of the whiskeys they did is from a not a Sauterne, but a dry white Bordeaux wine cask. And
Interesting.
I really, again, I don't want to say I really wanted to hate it, but I went in there thinking like, oh God, this is going to be
Yeah.
dreadful. And it was actually quite nice. It had a really lovely
Cool.
profile. So you could be right, but Evan, I think whether it's white or red, if it's second fill, it probably doesn't really matter. You're
Yeah.
probably going to get something that's really more about the oak at that point than it is about the
Hmm.
actual thing that seasoned it.
Very true. Uh yeah, regardless of what they did, I think you're bang on. Like this is an Ardmore that it there like there's been some young aggressive Ardmores we've had where I loved them, but they could have aged longer. There's been some older Ardmores we've had where they probably could have went longer even, but I think this was the right time for it. It's just got this wonderful balance.
I love how Jeff is kind of agreeing with me on this because I believe he also is not typically a big Ardmore fan because
Yeah,
I mean strikes against this one, Ardmore, two, wine cask, three. I mean, this isn't always an issue, but for a 13-year-old, there's like no color here. So I'm just looking
yeah.
at this thing thinking, oh man, there's no way this is going to be interesting or exciting. And I think I love it when I have a handful of these instances where something forces me to like challenge my preconceptions or eat my words. Um, because
Totally.
I just, and I'm not trying to suggest that this is as good as the Balblair or the Loch Lomond. I just thought, wow, this was a really interesting young Ardmore, and I've yet to come across a really interesting young Ardmore before.
Well, this is what makes, I think, Scotch whiskey probably still the most exciting category of whiskey there is that especially on the single malt side, we are able to get enough different bottlings from different distilleries to get an idea of what the distillery character is, yet still can manage to get surprised by what comes out of there every now and then.
Evan, do you think there'll be a time where I'm pleasantly surprised by what comes out of a certain massive, almost the entire industry-sized distillery in America?
Never know. They
One day
might
it'll
have
be
to
like,
age
oh my
in
God, you got to
Europe or the
try this
UK.
Beam bourbon.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll
Yeah,
happen.
maybe they'll finally like hit the nail on the head with the flavoring compounds that they add to it. Like you didn't like the cherry or the apple or the honey, but this is the one.
Oh, I thought, Evan, I thought for a second you were insinuating there was something more sinister going on, but really you're just talking about
The
Knob
flavored
Creek,
whiskeys. Yeah.
Knob Creek maple flavored whatever.
Yeah.
I get you. I get you. All right. Macallan. I'm surprised, but I'm guessing we had never poured this Macallan before. Just noticed Kelvin has managed to log in. Kelvin, we're a ways down the line. We're on the Ardmore, but we're gonna go back around the horn. So if you want to join us for the rest of the cycle,
Yeah.
we're about to dip into the Macallan here. So
Yeah.
I think we again.
Based on his username, I think Kelvin's first iPhone didn't work for logging in.
Kelvin's, I didn't see that. What I don't know if I can see the rest of that. Kelvin's iPhone 2, or unless maybe he logs in from both a work and a personal one from time to time.
Could be, could be.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll just have to leave that as a mystery, an unsolved mystery. So I'm pretty confident we haven't put this Macallan into a lineup yet. Um, uh,
Wow. You're just I thought I threw Kelvin under the bus there, Jeff.
well, I could make like a joke to soften the blow of that here, which is that number one daughter also now has two phones because she's a government employee.
Yeah.
So she can't use her
It's
personal
just a
phone
different
for
type of
government
dealer.
business.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that is a different type of dealer. All right, let's
Yep.
pop the Macallan up on here. So this is a cask of Macallan, Speymalt Macallan from Gordon MacPhail, bottled for Alberta, 59.1%, 20 years of age, first fill sherry seasoned American oak hogshead. I love the specificity of that there, and you can definitely tell from this, it's a touch on the paler side. Um, I've had a chance to try this a couple of times. I thought it was a real standout, especially on the palate.
Yep.
But
Still big ABV for McAllen at that age too.
well, but think about it this way. I mean, these are not just your average Macallan
Yep.
casks. These are Gordon MacPhail seasoned, specially seasoned sherry casks. So they tend to have a thicker stave. So they're going to have, they're, I think the bottom line is they're just better coopered casks, and they're going to be able to hold their alcohol a little better. But the other part of that is that they're not going to mature as quickly. So you're going to get a much slower, more balanced maturation in them. And
Hmm.
I got a really specific note on this that I quite liked. The one interesting thing I will say though is I am finding there's a bit of a heat to it, and I think that's just that Macallan distillate at this ABV, even at
Yeah.
this age, there's a bit of heat. But the big note I get on this is Mexican hot chocolate, um,
Ooh.
which is it's kind of a very sweet condensed milk, dark chocolate, but then also with like spices. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of what it's just it imagine carnation hot chocolate mix. I don't know, mixed with things that were actually fun. And I don't know,
Hmm.
maybe I don't even know what to think of, but like adding some cardamom and ginger,
Yeah.
and then because
Sombreros.
yeah, and then maybe some agave nectar to add some sweetness to it
Yeah.
as well too. Although
It's
really dark sugar.
I don't know if I would have gotten this note if you didn't say Mexican hot chocolate, but it's got like this slight like cooling but also spicy note of chipotle.
Mm. Well, maybe like mole sauce,
Yeah.
or Tootsie Roll, like something that's like a hybrid Tootsie Roll mole
Hmm.
sauce.
Yeah.
Kelvin, I guess, is trying to shush Jeff about his allegations, his scandalous allegations. It's sweet, spicy, very chocolatey. Um,
Yep.
it's interesting that this is American oak sherry because it's got quite a firm, like leather spice profile to it that I think more of like a classic European oak sherry cask. Um, so I think this is kind of in that more modern sherry style as opposed to an old school sherry style. But it's lovely. It's very reminiscent of
Yeah.
our Glentalkers, like that 2000 Glentalkers cask we have.
Yeah, that's a good call. It has those big chewy notes, fruit,
Mm,
the darker fruits, but the red fruit notes coming through, and like a touch of going into teriyaki sauce territory on the palate there too.
hmm Teriyaki's a good call. I mean, I'm gonna totally stray off piste here, but riffing on the lurking tonight after golf. Um, and the extra phone could make a joke about. I don't know if anyone saw the story today about people stealing from Lululemon. So maybe that's why.
No,
That's another reason why you might have a second phone is because you're part of that pyramid scheme that is, I suppose, an alternate retailer of Lululemon in the Lower Mainland.
interesting.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to look that up afterwards.
yeah. Um, it's actually a pretty bizarre story. I thought this was a fun Macallan. High ABV, but decent balance to it. No rough edges. I I don't think there's any sulfur or anything kind of untoward about this. And it's half the price of a Macallan 18. So just to me, it screams good value.
Cool. Yeah, it's a good one. I think that our Glen Talkers maybe has just a little bit more richness than this, but there are th some through notes on that one.
Yeah, quite lively. I think it's fair to say though, this is a Macallan that your average Macallan drinker isn't ready for because it's
No,
going to be just a little too concentrated and a little too intense.
well, like even their cast strength versions are usually put out at 53 or so.
And
This
they're
is way too
bland.
high.
Well, they're not even cast
Yeah,
strength anymore. They're what do they call them? The classic cut.
yeah,
It's a diluted version of cast strength just to appeal to a mass market.
yeah. Ooh, I'm already nosing the last one there.
All right. Well, that's a good transition. I'm ready to wander on down to this. It's fair to say that uh, this one didn't take off quite as quickly as we thought it might, but I think we've also seen a few chances where people have tried this and really liked it. So this is the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society peat in parts per thousand, 29.292, which makes it a Laphroaig. 23 years old. It spent 20 years in Oloroso sherry butt, was finished in a refill PX sherry butt before bottling at 58.2%. Um, man, the nose on that is actually quite
Yeah,
interesting.
it is. It's like an underwater peat fire.
That is a really good note. The Oloroso maturation PX finish is super curious.
Yeah,
Refill PX.
yeah, I'm happy for that. I tend to like Laphroaig and ex-bourbon or some plainer casks. I don't like when they typically or when they sometimes overshare it. I don't find it needs it to give you flavor. So the sherry just step back a little bit is a good call.
Well, and I mean, I think that asks a bunch of questions, like why make that move? Why take it from a fresh cask to a refill? And Evan,
True.
maybe your suspicion is right. It was all about trying to slow down, make sure it wasn't overcooked. Um, but yeah, this has got a really interesting palate. Jeff's got an
Well,
interesting comment here, and I don't know if you know anything about the seven. Maybe he's privy to some intel that you and I are not.
So
Just like the
I think
third
he's
last
making a
Laphroaig.
joke about, yeah, I think he's making a joke about, so I think I mentioned, because we had a release called So Let Us Bid a Fond Farewell from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society about 4 to 6 months ago of a Laphroaig, and how we probably wouldn't be seeing many Laphroaigs uh, in the future from them.
Hmm.
Maybe that'll change. I mean, there's the difficulty with Laphroaig is I think they do sell casks, but they make you contractually sign something that says that you cannot state where it comes from in a lot of cases, or they just don't tell you. And then the other difficulty is a lot of the time they'll bottle it as Williamson, um,
Hmm.
which also muddies the waters a bit, especially for companies like the Scotch Malt Whisky Society that do typically want to at least codify it with a number that denotes a distillery.
Well, I guess, I mean, there's nothing stopping the Scotch Malt Whisky Society from just adding 29.A and calling it Williamson. But maybe that wouldn't even be permitted by Laphroaig. Uh, it's got a lovely old school profile, really delicate sherry. The peat's hung on fairly well, but it has softened. It's more oily. Um, yeah, it's
It's
like
not as it's not as floral like a lot of the time Laphroaig at this level goes in or age goes in a bit more into the Parma violets. There's a touch of that perfume note, but it's still kind of leaning on the citrus a bit more than I expected.
well, and it's medicinal, like, but it's medicinal,
Yeah.
like a softer medicinal. So I know it's like
Hmm.
barrel aged turpentine and barrel aged
Yeah.
Dettol.
Iodine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, barrel aged Dettol would be. Can you imagine mopping the floors with that? It'd smell fantastic.
I think barrel aged Dettol should be like that would be a good Scotch Malt Whisky Society name for something that's just like a young Laphroaig that's like overly
Yeah.
medicinal.
Yeah. Or even barrel aged antiseptic if they wanted to
Yeah.
keep it trademark free.
I guess that's a fair point. Dettol may not like that. So barrel aged hospital floor cleaner doesn't really have the same name to it or the same
Yeah.
ring. Well, I teased this out uh, earlier on in the tasting that I would share the label. I'm pretty sure this is the final label for the Walter's Choice blended Scotch, which is coming in the not
Cool.
too distant future here. This might not be the final label. Oh, yeah, I don't know how to. Let me see if I can put that in here. So this is a 44-year-old blend from 1980 that we've got coming in the not too distant future, and it's pretty bloody good. And there's a lot of lovely tidbits in here. This is based on like a Macallan-esque sort of Edrington blend that our friends at Elixir Distillers acquired for us. And apologies that I'm showing it in paint, but the images that I had in my inbox weren't really suitable to opening up and sharing. But yeah, man's best blended Scotch whiskey, doggone finest deluxe rare old, a special treat for only the goodest boys and girls, aged 44 years, and then in brackets under there it says 308 dog years. So that's coming down the pipeline and at a good price too. We worked really hard with the producer and the importer to keep it under 500 bucks, which for like a cast strength sherry forward uh, single cask 44-year-old Scotch whiskey is a pretty good price. Um, so we're pretty excited to see that come soon. Likely won't launch until mid-July, just simply because there's a few things to work around before that.
Yeah, that's one of some of the most fun I have in a job that tends to be pretty fun is when you call me into the office and ask, how can we make this
Yeah.
label even weirder? And
Yeah, let's dial this up. Like, how can we dial
yeah,
this up?
yeah,
So
that was a fun conversation, that one.
it was. All right. Are we ready to go back around the horn here?
Yeah.
All right, so we're headed back to Strathisla, which is surprising how delicate and how soft it is now. It's almost like smelling honeysuckles on like a warm summer
Oh,
day.
yeah, good call. It does have a lot of that honeysuckle note. It's
On the
almost
palate,
into like grape candy territory now.
the palate's still really grapey, still like hubba bubba, um, tang, like grape tang.
Mhm.
There's also like a bit of a chocolate milk note to it there too.
Man, they should do a grape flavored chocolate milk. Probably be pretty good.
I'm sure your kids would be all over that.
Yeah, it's
We
like raisinette chocolate milk.
we are getting yogurt soju tomorrow, so that's a thing.
Really?
Yeah, maybe
Nice.
you could make like a maybe what we should suggest to the Koreans is to make a grape chocolate milk flavored soju.
Yeah. And they're like, no, only banana flavored.
Yeah, I think the hipsters would be all over that.
Yeah.
All right, Loch Lomond, 21.
Oh, just like a wonderfully musty and dusty and just a light peat note on there with some fruit.
Oh man, it's kind of tart in the all the right ways. Like it's this
Yeah.
exotic fruit cocktail. I mean, I think it's gone like beyond its best before date in the tin, but
Yeah.
it's just more fun all for it.
I do kind of wish we could try that at a higher strength, but I wonder if you wouldn't get those sour notes or those bitter notes, if it was.
Yeah. Also, you don't want to get the botulism with
Hmm.
those like overaged tinned fruits. I think that's
That's
where the
right.
botulism comes in. Or as some people might say, cosmetic surgery ingredients.
That's right. That
Inchgower,
goes,
23.
there's a little bit of strawberries and yogurt on the
Mm.
nose now. It's gotten a little bit, I said lush on the palate, but it's gotten like it's not as tight on the nose as it was.
It's funny you say that because now I'm thinking like the palate
Mm.
reminds me of that country western song Strawberry Wine, but like
Yeah,
if they filtered the strawberry wine through dirty burlap.
yeah. And then like watered it down with just a little bit of chlorine pool.
Either that or dirty water from the creek,
Yeah,
or depending on where you are, the crick.
yeah.
Russell's in Ontario. He knows what I'm talking about. Some of them
Mm.
in that southern Ontario part, they like to talk about their cricks. Yeah, it's got such a funny, like a fun, musty, dungy character without being over the top. And those
Yeah.
salty tones really start to hit
Hmm.
on the finish.
Yeah, that saltiness is again, I don't think I'd pick up on that until you say it, but it's all over the place. It's just like really well put in there.
All right. Balblair 1997. Oh man.
Linseed oil on the nose right now.
It reminds me of like if you went to like a Michelin star German restaurant and they made a gas streak that was like an attempt to like put all fruit flavors in human existence into a foam,
Yeah,
that's what it would
yeah,
be like.
yeah. It's earth fruit.
And then when you taste it, you're like, you get hints of fruit, but you're like, where are they? Like they vanish
Yeah,
instantly. They're not all there. Also, there's a side of head cheese. So I think this is on it's a little gastrique on top of the head cheese.
yeah, yeah. It's a fruity funk or a funky fruit.
Man, that's good. Really dig that. Okay, Ardmore, the youngest whiskey in the lineup tonight.
Yeah, Kevin, you keep us talking long enough. It'll happen no matter what.
Getting a little bit of chicken stock.
Yeah, I could see that. I still get the peanut butter, but it's almost into like a slightly savory sesame dip on Viet like you're dipping in like Vietnamese rolls into it or salad rolls.
It's got a bit of a Korean barbecue note on the palate now,
Mm,
specifically Korean barbecue potato chips.
nice.
I
Almost like a
mean,
dry rub.
yeah, this is far from my favorite whiskey in the lineup, but I think it holds up remarkably well for a
Yeah.
13-year-old wine cask Ardmore.
Well, the cool thing with that wine cask is like we've had some wine casks in the past where they fall apart like after the second go round. This is
Mhm.
still holding together really nicely.
All right. Macallan, Mac Allen.
There's a lot of waxy crayons on the nose right now for me on that one.
Dude, that is such a call. Like
Oh,
I would like melted.
you're chopping up just a bit there, I think, Andrew, or I want to start from what you were saying about the Macallan there when you come back.
Say it was like melted crayons. Like I thought your
Cool.
crayon note was great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's they're in spades now.
All right, I'm already on to
Mm.
the Laphroaig. I mean, as good as that Macallan is, and I do think it's a good one. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't think it quite holds a candle to the Balblair or the next one that we're going on to, the Laphroaig.
agreed. Yeah, it's got a bit of like dried seaweed snacks going on now on the palate or on the nose, sorry.
The seaweed snacks is a good one. Throw in there a little bit of like licorice nibs, like
Hmm.
by which I mean the like the candied ones, the ones that have got like the different colored candy shells with the licorice inside them.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't
yeah,
really see those very often anymore.
yeah. Not like quite going into Dutch licorice or German licorice territory where they should have a like a Scoville unit measurement for it for the
Yeah.
licoriceness of it.
For like how salty and how fetishy they taste.
That's right.
Mm,
Speaking of fetishy, just a touch of PVC on that one on the nose too.
not liquid latex.
Hmm,
All right. I think I'm nailed. I think I've nailed my top three here. I'm not
cool.
entirely sure of the order just yet, but I'm feeling pretty confident there. I'm pretty close. Um, I know we do not have the world's largest turnout tonight, but should we trigger the poll anyway?
Yeah. Every vote counts.
Yeah. All right. So the poll is now up. You get to vote for your favorite whiskey, or your second favorite whiskey. And then there's a third question. Aren't random virtual tastings the best? And we'll see what people have to say about that. And our sample size tonight is not the largest. So we'll see what we come back with there. But Evan, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Um, have you picked your top three whiskeys from tonight's lineup?
Yeah. Uh, so two and three, I could probably, well, all three, I could probably put them in a variety of different orders depending on when you asked me, but you asked me now. So, my third favorite is the Loch Lomond 21. I think for an official bottling, that is just fantastic. And it doesn't even do what I expected it would. It just is a really good dram. Just great stuff. Second favorite is the SMWS Laphroaig at the end. Just a
Okay.
great Laphroaig. And I think I got to give first to that Balblair. It just is just a wonderful dram. Like there's some dark fruit notes in there that I would not expect to get on bourbon
Mhm.
casks, but somehow Balblair seems to pull those out no matter what cask you give it in, put it in.
Yeah.
So, fantastic dram.
Underrated. And I don't think we mentioned this during the tasting, but I told you earlier tonight that I had a new fact about Balblair that I didn't know, and that was that
Yes.
they'd only sold in 2023, which keep in mind, like that's the peak of the single malt market. probably the best year they ever had. Maybe even slightly down from the best year they ever had. And Balblair sold 150,000 bottles, which is really not a lot. Like you're talking about um, when you're talking liters of pure alcohol, I think that's under 100,000 liters. So quite a small volume, and yet it's one of the oldest distilleries in Scotland. It's a beautiful distillery. I think they make a great single malt, but they've just really struggled with their identity. And
Yeah,
they've struggled with that, I think, in a crowded market is the other part of it too. There's so
absolutely.
much competition.
Yeah, totally agreed. Like there's if you go back far enough and there's still people that love certain vintages of the Bell Blairs and we'll talk about them like oh the 97 was fantastically sherried or the 89s or the 91s or 90s or 91s or the ex bourbon cask that I got from the 94 was awesome. And then
Mhm,
they switched to this more unfortunately more milk toast sort of like age stated line where they're just
mhm,
trying to give you like a level up in the way the age goes and the price goes from the 12 to 15 to 18 like they do with the old Pulteney. And
mhm.
there's just it kind of lost some of its character in that.
Well, it's like Andock, which is one of their sister distilleries,
Yep.
and I would say the inconsistent availability of some of their older stuff, like the 18 and the 22,
Yep.
it's the 22, just doesn't help. Like, you got to kind of find ways to bridge that a little bit better because it's kind of hard to build a
Yep.
brand identity, to build a brand like that in such a crowded market when you can't even supply the market on a regular basis. So,
Yep. Well,
uh,
Anok still the saddest thing they ever did was get rid of the 16. That was just a great dram.
yeah, that bourbon cast one was glorious. Evan, um, I think this is the second time this has happened in the history of Kensington Wine Market tastings. But my favorites are exactly the same as yours. I think that
Wow.
Balblair is the standout favorite tonight. Um, the Loch Lomond 21 is so close to being my number two.
Yeah.
But I think that Laphroaig from the Society just edges it out of the way slightly. So yeah, our one, twos, and threes are matched tonight. Oh, Kelvin's saying that's a bingo square.
Yeah. Yeah. His second phone is happy.
Wow, that's a bingo square. I didn't know. Bingo. There you go. That's really
Yep.
exciting.
I
Should
gotta
we?
say, like, while you're like revealing the vote there, the lineup is fantastic. Like, there's there's not really a disappointing dram of the bunch. I think the most normal or ordinary is maybe that Macallan, um, stylistically. That Inchgower still is kind of blowing my mind with how many different directions it goes in. It's cool stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, and even the Scapa for a starter dram for like,
Sorry, that Strathisla.
yeah, the Strathisla. Even that Strathisla as a starting dram, I think is just such a good one. All right, the poll. Now our poll results tonight, um, skewed somewhat by the fact that we don't have the largest attendance, but the Macallan, Evan, despite our damning with faint praise, the
That
Macallan
maybe
is
has
number
to be the
one.
next bingo square is the best dram isn't one of the ones that the KWM staff pick.
Oh, but that's not already a bingo square. We're not giving them
No,
two.
it should be.
Okay. And the 29.292, the SMWS Laphroaig comes in second. And then for second favorite dram tonight, it's the 29.292 Laphroaig, followed by the Balblair 97. So interestingly, I don't think we were fully in sync tonight with the audience. And then your third question, aren't random virtual tastings the best? And the answer is the options are no, they are the worst. There is no semblance of narrative for me to tune out, and the tasting is disjointed and conversation all over the place. I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's a prosaic way of guessing what tonight's tasting would end up being a bit
Mhm.
like. Uh, Second option, yes, they're the best. There is no semblance of narrative. for me to tune out and the tasting is disjointed and conversations all over the place. That's the exact same question, is it not?
Well, there's a yes or a no in front of it. It just depends on how
Oh,
you
there's a
take it or
yes and a
what you
no. All
enjoy.
right.
Yeah.
But the question's still the same. It's just, all right,
So
I
perception's
think
different.
we're talking semantics here a little bit because the justification for the yes and the no is exactly the same.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, you're okay. And I mean, this should be the answer. I don't care if Andrew wants to taste it. I'm happy to tune out the commentary regardless. All right.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Well, I actually thought this was a great lineup tonight. I'm glad that we were joined by a handful
Yeah.
of our friends for it. I hope the others will get around to tasting this at some point. And if they're watching this video, I hope they're feeling a little guilty on missing out on the night of experience of
Yeah.
going through this range with us.
Yeah. Especially if they had some sort of catastrophic like family emergency or something. How dare you miss this tasting?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, those important life events will happen again, probably. So,
Yeah, in the next life.
yeah. Well, Evan, this was fun. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Kelvin, thank you for tuning in late after golf. Hopefully you'll be able to enjoy your drams when you
Yeah.
get home.
Yeah, you'll have to tell your first iPhone how it all went.
And if you're curious, there is an interesting story about organized crime in Lululemon on the news, so look it up. Um, until the next one, I don't remember what the next one is. We've got the society tastings coming up, but I think is it
It's like,
Compass Box? No, there's got to be
I think
something
it is
else.
Compass Box. Yeah.
Well, it'll be a wee while until the next one of these. Happy Canada Day, everybody, and I guess we'll see you at the next tasting.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Okay.